Well, what's up, beginner guys? Brian here, the Three Topics Gamer, here to share with you another episode of my weekly Q&A to have the people's questions or answer a series of questions that I've been sent to me over the past week. This episode is probably going to mark not only the last episode of the people's questions, but probably the last video that I film in this current location, because by the time this video is uploaded around Friday morning or afternoon, I will be moving a good amount of the rest of my stuff, because as of right now, my room is literally empty. The only thing that is currently left is just the computer here, and my television there, and my bed here, but everything else is gone. All the games, all the collectibles, my entire closet, most of my clothes, all that stuff is already gone. So, and I think I will probably end up be doing a tour video of my new room, which is definitely going to be a step up above this room, so I can't wait to show you that. So going into this episode of TPQ, we got a solid amount of questions, and I believe only one new person. But some of these questions are pretty extensive, so I think that's very, very good. So before I get into you guys' answer questions, like always, if you do happen to enjoy this video by the end, do not forget to like, subscribe, and share this on all your social media outlets so we can draw on more people and hopefully grow the channel. So starting off with the first question coming from Brady Burke, you want to know, what movie do you hate but everyone else likes? I hate, but everyone, I got like one or two of these type of questions this episode. It's like that I hate, but everyone else likes. I don't think I can use the term hate because I haven't seen it, and I don't want to see it, and I refuse to watch it. But I guess the closest to what you're describing is maybe Avengers Endgame. I mean, I don't hate the film, but I don't want to watch it. I've checked out of most comic book movies. I have, like, as far as I can say, I have no plans on watching any more MCU films. I'm not going to watch any DCEU films. The only movies on my radar that I have even any interest in seeing is maybe Venom 2 and maybe Spider-Verse and the solo Batman film. Like, anything that's not part of an extended universe is something I will be interested in. I'm completely checked out of cinematic universes. I would like to go back to just focusing on one film, just trying to be the best film that it can, and that is sadly not what these cinematic universe films are trying to be right now. So I guess Endgame would be the closest to what you're describing. Next question comes from the only new person, and you have a pretty interesting name, and you go by the name of Tim. Just Tim. No last name, nothing special, just Tim. T-I-M. Well, welcome, Tim. And you want to know, what do I think of Connor Kenway as a character, and if you had to put every assassin in... Okay, again, we're going to try to focus on one question per person, but you basically said, if I did a battle royale with every single Assassin's Creed assassin in the franchise, who would win? That isn't... Okay, I'm going to answer your second question. That's impossible. Because I don't know every single assassin in the franchise. I don't know who's been playable and who's not. I haven't played every single Assassin's Creed game, so that's impossible to answer. As for Connor Kenway, he's fine. He's a fine character, and he's fine. No, I mean that's all I can say. He is a fine character. That's all I'll say about Connor Kenway. So, next question comes from Ellen Degenerate. You want to know, what is the one game or movie that... See, another question. There's another question like this. What is one game or movie that I love, but it's in reverse, but have no idea why other people don't like it? Again, this is a hard question. We've already done a movie, so a game that I like that not a lot of people like. I guess the closest to that would be like Resident Evil 6, I guess. I mean, I get why people don't like it, but I personally don't mind. I think that there are certain elements of it that are just fine. I mean, easily Leon's campaign alone is better than the entirety of Resident Evil 5. But each campaign has its own different tones. So you have like Leon's campaign, which is definitely much more survival horror. You have Ada's, which is much more stealth. You have Jake's, which is a little bit of a mix between Leon and Chris. Then Chris is just straight up action. I mean, I think that's really biggest, that's my least favorite out of the 4 primary campaigns. But other than that, I do enjoy playing Resident Evil 6 and I have no real issues with it. In fact, I would say up until, I'd say, the most recent 2 Resident Evil remakes, Resident Evil 6 without question had the best controls of any Resident Evil game up to that point, and I stand by that statement. So yeah, I guess the closest I can answer that question is Resident Evil 6. Next question comes from the White November Sorrow, and you want to know what character from a franchise, movie, or game that... Oh god, I was not joking. Another question like this. So, what character from a franchise, movie, or game that everybody loves, but you can't understand why, as well as a series you feel is overhyped or popular that you can't stand? Oh dear. Now we gotta do this with a character. A character. First you guys want me to do a movie. Now you want me to do a game. And now you want me to try to do both. A character. I don't know. Wonder Woman, I guess. I mean, I hate Wonder Woman. Like, I hate Wonder Woman. Put it this way. Wonder Woman, to me, is the worst character in the history of fiction. I cannot think of a character in all of fiction, non or just fiction, that I hate more than that character. And I don't know, and I understand why that character has fans, but I am not one of them. And yeah, so that is the closest. That is the closest character I can think of that can answer that question. And hopefully that will be the last question where you guys are asking me, what like that. So let's go to the next question. And it comes from the Batman of Neo Gotham. And you want to know, well, okay, wow, do you think Slade Wilson would fare against someone like Darth Maul in a fight? Would he be able to kill the Sith, or would he get struck down with no issue? Here's the universe. I get this question a lot. Or I used to before I took my 6-month break from people's questions. I had so many people asking, what would happen if this person went up against a Star Wars character or a Force user? Here's the problem. How does a person who can't use the Force fare against someone who can use the Force? 9,999 times out of 10,000 fights in Star Wars, when a Force user goes up against a non-Force user, most times the non-Force user typically ends up losing. Unless the Force user is cocky or arrogant or lets his guard down. Typically, Darth Maul could kill Wade Wilson just by snapping his fingers. I mean, if you have... at least the characters in Star Wars that have been able to beat, who are non-Force users, that have face Force users, at least they have some idea of what someone can do with the Force. But again, with someone who has no idea what the Force is, or how it works, or how it can be used, you put them up against a Sith or a Jedi, they're typically going to be at an even worse disadvantage. So I can't imagine how Slade would fare against a Force user. Even a basic Force user, he would probably lose 10 out of 10 times. Now, if he had knowledge of how it works and how you can get around it, then maybe he might perform better. But yeah, if you're going in blind, I don't really see how you could win. Next question comes from Rain932. You want to know, do I prefer game visuals designed to be more realistic, like Death Stranding or Assassin's Creed, or more stylish games like Persona 5 and Ratchet and Clank? To me, it doesn't really matter. It depends on the game itself. It depends on the style you're trying to go with. I mean, there's some games I think work better with taking a much more realistic look, and then there's some others that can take a more artistic and stylistic look, and it works for that type of game. It's very much dependent on the game itself. I would not change the overall visual look of any of those type of games because that's what worked for the aesthetic that they are trying to set up, and it worked perfectly fine for them. Next question comes from Alir Cerna, another Assassin's Creed question, and you want to know, do I think Connor Kenway killed Shay Cormac after the events of Assassin's Creed 3? That seems kind of unlikely because A, we don't really know exactly how Connor Kenway or Shay Cormac died. They probably just died of natural causes. And if you were talking about after the events of Assassin's Creed 3, how far after Assassin's Creed 3 would you say? Because Shay Cormac wasn't even, the last we see him, he's in France. There's no indication if he ever came back to the colonies. We don't know if he went back. We don't know if he went somewhere else. there's no information that tells us exactly what happened at the end of these characters' lives. So to say that a conflict between them happened is speculation at most, and even then, that's a stretch. So I can't say whether they interacted or even met. I mean, there's no evidence to support that at all. So, yeah. And the last question of the episode comes from Phantom Sidious. You want to know, in my opinion, what makes the boss battles in Metal Gear Solid series so unique compared to other video game franchises? Well, I won't say that all boss fights in Metal Gear Solid are unique, but I will say that there are a few that manage to stand out to me. And I think it's their ability to break the fourth wall. The one boss fight I think that sticks out to me is the Psycho Mantis boss fight in Metal Gear Solid 1 or, Twin Snakes if you decide to play the remake. And I think what makes that one stand out is how when, Psycho Mantis can kind of mess with your game and break the fourth barrier. So, like, while you're playing that game, it'll, like, do something like make you think that your memory on the game got erased, or, if the way you beat Psycho Mantis, spoiler alert, is basically he can control your movements. So what you do, which was unique at the time, is you literally take your controller out of player one because that's the port he's focused on, and just switch it to player two, and now he can't control your movements anymore. And you just shoot him up and he's dead. And then so he has that ability to kind of mess with you. And I think that's what makes at least that boss fight in particular stand out to me, is the ability to force the player to do something that is very, very different and not be so traditional. So at least in that particular boss fight's description, I think that's what makes it unique compared to most boss fights. And now about do it for this last episode of the People's Questions and this location. If you did have, again, if you guys have any more questions you'd like me to answer in next week's episode, which will be filmed in a different location, make sure you type them in the comments down below. But make sure you get them into me roughly before noon on Thursday. And if you want to increase your odds of them being answered in the next video instead of in the comments, just have them stand out and be more interesting. And just as a little bit of a tip, before you send in your question, make sure you look at everyone else's questions so everyone is a little bit unique, so I don't get 3 or 4 of the same different type of questions, because this was kind of crazy for this particular episode. So with that said, thank you guys for watching. You're awesome, and I will see you next time.